Hello, I'm Ryan Miller, and today we are looking at both how poverty may affect a student's ability to learn, and also how we can help our students overcome that barrier of poverty. First, let's take a look at what researchers have to say about the impact of poverty on student achievement. In 2003, Donna Beagle wrote a very interesting and telling article on how poverty affects students in the U.S. In it, she said although there has been some progress made in diminishing educational barriers of race, gender, geography, and religion, poverty is the one barrier that has not even been partially overcome. Beagle's research found that, in general, research participants said that growing up in poverty caused them great shame and humiliation. They also believed that outsiders perceived poverty to be their fault. These participants faced physical, emotional, sociological, and economic barriers to literacy and education at all stages of their lives. However, worse than that, Beagle said that there was a widespread perception among respondents that most teachers in elementary and high school didn't care. Respondents also perceived that teachers, quote, didn't know what to do with kids like them. So how do we as educators overcome this to help students learn? Well, according to Dr. Jensen and his study on brain-based learning, teachers can help kids in poverty by building relationships. Beagle agrees, saying she found that a strong link between mentor support and academic success emerged in her study of students from generational poverty. Also, according to Dr. Ruby Payne, teachers should begin to immediately build positive emotional relationships by being kind, courteous, and respectful, being clear about rules and expectations, keeping promises, using humor when appropriate, and apologizing when you make a mistake. And although we are speaking about building relationships in relation to poverty, I don't think this is limited to just those students. I think one of the best ways to help all students is through relationships, mentoring, and one-on-one time. Not everyone agrees that poverty is a prominent barrier to education, though. Reshawn Biddle, in his podcast on ending the poverty myth in education, does not think poverty is the underlying reason for America's educational problem. Indeed, Biddle says that high-value teaching has a greater impact on student achievement for students in any socioeconomic realm. Also, family engagement has a greater impact on students than many other things, and a poor family that provides a student with educational opportunities can do just as well as any other student. Biddle instead blames poor teachers and a failing American educational system. Let's take a moment and speak to Jim I. Miller, a teacher with the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, about his experiences in helping students in poverty and also how online schooling may provide a catalyst for helping these students.
Hello again. I'm Ryan Miller, and I'm here with Jim I. Miller, talking about some of the barriers that we can see to poverty and overcoming those barriers. So, how are you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
Pretty good. So, today's field-based activity, we're going over what we can do to kind of overcome some of the barriers that maybe students in poverty would have to getting their education and achieving all that they can. Have you seen poverty create any barriers?
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand in both the cyber school setting currently and in my previous school setting at the school I taught at in Pittsburgh.
Okay, like what were some of those barriers?
The number one barrier, I think, is that these students have a lot of other problems on their plate that they deal with on a day-to-day basis that maybe in their minds and one necessarily couldn't blame them for, but kind of take precedent over their homework or the test that's coming up the next day. They might be worried more about where's my next meal going to come from, or maybe they have to pick up a part-time job to help out with family expenses. Those are I think the number one problems that we see, or the barriers that we see with these students that are living in poverty. The other side of it is the social side of it, where maybe these students are picked on sometimes in school. We see that in a brick and mortar school, or perhaps there's just uh, that casting or that I guess the word would be other students see that and they kind of can prey on that sometimes because we all know kids
Yeah.
can be rather mean.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got these barriers. How do you overcome that in a school setting?
I think one of the number one strategies I've seen be successful is to really you don't treat them any differently. You have to challenge these students and even sometimes challenge them to a greater degree than you would your typical middle class student. Uh, it's amazing what students are capable of and how resilient they really are even at a young age when given the opportunities and showing the student that the teacher does care about their success because often again they see all these other things going on in their life that might be more important. Well, that's where we come in as teachers, understanding their situation, but also helping them understand this is important too. And if you ever want to get out of this, you might want to be successful in your education. So really just challenging the student, I think, to be successful beyond what many people have ever challenged them before would be a good strategy.
Okay. So you talked about cyber schools that we have students in poverty, of course, in cyber school as well as a traditional brick and mortar. Do you think it's easier to relate in cyber schools, harder, the same? Is there any difference?
As far as relating to the student, I don't think there's really any difference. I think cyber schools offer some very unique advantages to these students because one, they're not necessarily dealing with the social issues that might come in the brick and mortar setting where kids are worried about okay he has old jeans on or old tennis shoes so you're not worried about that kind of thing that might happen in school. The student has all the same technology in our school that other students have in our school, so because we provide everything for them, and even an internet connection if we need to provide it, we do. So the student isn't at a disadvantage, at least from an academic standpoint at our school, because he's given all the same opportunities as part of what we do as a cyber school. So I think those opportunities we offer in a cyber setting are very unique and a great benefit to these students. Now, again, the disadvantages for these students are the same as our other students where, we're not with them on a daily basis, one-on-one. So, you want to have that attention, that one-on-one attention sometimes with these students to keep them motivated. But other than that, I mean, we really do try to level the playing field for all students at the cyber setting.
Yeah, it sounds like it maybe just does level everything up, and cyber setting may be actually good for doing that for kids in poverty. Any other final thoughts?
No. Again, my only final thought to any educator would be, you have to look past the surface, and this is a general rule for people. Look past the surface of the student and really, assume that they're capable of more because most of the time they are, and you have to challenge these students if you want them to succeed.
Well, thank you for speaking with us today. Again, I'm Ryan Miller, and this has been Jim I. Miller.
I couldn't agree more with Jim, and I think there are certainly things I can do in my classroom to assist students who may be experiencing poverty as a barrier to learning. Beagle noted several tactics teachers can employ to help these students. She said teachers should make every effort to show poverty-stricken students they are special. She also said teachers need to make an effort to ensure understanding of the material covered and to connect those students with a mentor and build a network of support. I think educators need to know each of their students. We need to ask questions about our students' home lives, even if it is occasionally uncomfortable. So, the first thing I would like to do is to pair students with mentors and provide class time for meeting and talking with these mentors. Another very interesting idea Beagle noted is that she said teachers should rethink homework for these students. I do think teachers should think about the purpose of our homework that we give and think of ways to accomplish the same goal, perhaps with after-school programs for tutoring. The reason for this is that these students' home lives often isn't the best environment for scholastic endeavors. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this slidecast and video. Again, my name is Ryan Miller, and thank you very much for listening.